Hello my fellow Christian fiction lovers, welcome to another video. Long time no see. We're just gonna go with the posting schedule of maybe these days, but anyway. Oh yes, today's video I am going to be sharing with you my thoughts on Pearl in the Sand by Tessa Afshar. I just finished this book. I picked it up from a thrift store a couple of weeks ago and it's been on my TBR for a while. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the story, this is a fictional account of the story of Rahab from the Bible. I believe that's found in the book of Joshua. Yes. And Rahab is one of the 5 women who is found in the genealogy of Christ in Matthew chapter 1. So her story is really unique and really cool because she goes from being a harlot in Jericho to being one of the women in the line of Christ, which is just amazing and just speaks volumes to God's will and God's power. And I really enjoyed this book, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on it because I've seen it it's kind of popular in this circle. So let's just dive into it now that I've given you a little background. So I'm just going to talk about the plot first, since that is kind of what I started with, but I felt that the plot developed very nicely and it stayed very biblically accurate. And obviously with books like this that are biblical fiction, a couple of liberties have to be taken, and that's completely fine because we are really only given about a chapter in the Bible when it comes to Rahab, so writing a whole book on her can prove a little difficult. But I thoroughly enjoyed reading her story of how she was in Jericho and she chose her lifestyle and then started feeling her heart drawn towards the Lord and gave up that lifestyle. And there was no sugarcoating of what she did was bad, and like it was more than bad, but also how she came to repentance and then forgiveness from that lifestyle was, honestly, that was just so sweet to read. And I just so enjoy that story because I have to think that she did have a moment of full repentance, and multiple moments, like her whole life after she went to Israel and became a follower of God, that she just lived a life of just a changed life, I guess. But anyway, so the plot development was very good. I felt that, and this is kind of a spoiler, but also not because it is in the Bible. So once she marries Salmon, which is the way I'm going to pronounce it, because that's kind of how it seems in the book. Anyway, once she marries Salmon, I did feel like the plot kind of slowed down a little. Like that was kind of like the it moment that we were all waiting for. And then they had a lot of challenges in their early couple of months of marriage that the last bit of the book, the last couple of chapters, focused on. And while it was good for the plot and I did enjoy reading it because we weren't done with the characters by that point in the story and we did need that, it just felt a little different from the rest of the book because there wasn't as much action as there was before, when, you know, you literally have the walls of Jericho tumbling down and Rahab's family assimilating into Israel and all of these like heavy action, heavy emotion, like just a lot going on. And then you have just like this marriage plot at the end. It felt just a little different, I guess. But I did like reading how their early marriage worked out, because I definitely think it would have been unrealistic to just be like, they got married and lived happily ever after, the end, because that's never gonna happen, like, ever in any relationship. So I did like that they focused a little bit on how they were able to overcome some of their struggles and really get deep and personal with how they interacted with one another. And then, so that's the plot. And then moving into the actual characters, the character of Rahab she was such a good character and she was so well written. I was just experiencing her emotions with her, and I really feel like she developed in a way that made sense for her character. Sometimes I feel like when characters come to the Lord in books, that they just go from like a stubborn-willed personality to this like meek and mild and subservient attitude, just like kind of out of the blue. And she didn't do that at all. Her attitude of like doing things her way and like making all of her own decisions to submitting to the Lord and what he wanted was definitely a gradual change over the book, and it just flowed. And by the time, like, she was a completely different person by the end of the book, but it made sense. You know what I'm saying? I've talked about this before on my channel, but I do not like overnight changes in characters. Like, you have to make it make sense if you're going to do that, and for Rahab it would not have made sense unless it was written differently, and I'm glad it wasn't, because she was just so well written, her gradual change over time. And I honestly, there were times when I couldn't put this book down, and when I had to, I was like, I just want to pick it back up again, and I just want to keep reading, because I loved watching her change, and it encouraged me in my own faith, honestly, of these gradual changes over time, and being able to look back and be like, I was this way at one point and I'm so different now, and only by the grace of God. So I thought she was just a beautiful example of that. And then the other main character, Salmon, who is the primary love interest, not the primary, the only love interest for Rahab, and they do end up getting married. He was a really good character, because in the beginning he is like, it's kind of like enemies to lovers in a way, except Rahab doesn't dislike Salmon, but Salmon very much dislikes Rahab and her family in the beginning, because he's like, I don't want these Canaanites to enter our camp. I don't want them to pollute our, sacred and holy, like, we're the chosen people, I don't want them coming in because they're not chosen. And then over time, obviously his heart softens enough towards her to the point where he falls in love with her. His character change, with that like gradual change, was also really well written, and I just so enjoyed reading it. Like, both of them were just, it was just done so well, and I know there was so much thought and intention put into it. I can just read it from the pages, and I really, really loved it. I don't have many negative things to say about this book. Honestly, the way that Salmon's anger and the way that he denied his feelings towards Rahab was written in such a way where I just kind of wanted to like shake him and be like, buddy, cut it out. Like, just admit you love her already. And I just think it's so, so cool when authors are able to write their characters in such a way where it's like you love them, but you just like, really, like, get it together. Because that's just the mark of such good writing, when you can make your readers feel that way. But anyway, yeah, so when they finally came together, it was like, that's amazing. And then again, it wasn't a happily ever after. They did have some struggles after they admitted their love for one another and after they got married, and that was just so, so cool. And being able to see relationships with the side characters like Salmon and Joshua, they definitely had a friendship dynamic, more of like a leadership dynamic, where Joshua was able to speak into Salmon's life and give him advice and counsel on how to be a good husband to Rahab, and that was amazing. I loved that so much. And then Rahab develops a friendship with Salmon's sister, Miriam, and she learns so much about God and so much about the other Israelites through that. And there's this one moment where they're having a conversation about flaws, their different flaws. And Rahab was like, oh, I'm so flawed. And Miriam, you're like perfect. You're the like picture perfect Israelite girl. And Miriam is like, no, I'm not. Like, that's not who I am at all. And they're able to have this conversation where they can break down, like, everyone is flawed and everyone can be better and be more godly. And it's just such a good moment for Rahab, and good for Miriam too. And so I love that there are those other friendships outside of just Salmon and Rahab that really build them up, and we get to see these other characters, and it's just so, so sweet. Overall, I would give this book 4.5 stars out of 5. And obviously it is biblical fiction, so there is a very big Christian element. I've kind of already talked about that a little, but the characters pray all the time. Rahab's journey to the Lord is just one of the best I've ever read. So many biblical fiction books I've read, the characters sort of already know God, and then it's like they just grow in their relationship with him. Versus this one is like a full transition, a full, like, we literally get to read the moment she first hears about God. And it's just, it just encouraged me so much in my own faith. And I love books that do that. Biblical fiction, honestly, is probably, it's one of my favorite genres. I really, really love it, and I need to read more of it. And Tessa Afshar writes it in such a good way, so I need to be on the lookout for more of her books. But yeah, those are just some of my quick thoughts on Pearl in the Sand. I wish I'd done a reading vlog on it, but oh well. Let me know if you've read this book and your thoughts on it, and let me know if you have any other really good biblical fiction recs. I might have read them already because I have a whole shelf. Where is it? That top shelf up there is all biblical fiction. So I might have already read some of them, but let me know. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, bye!